Playing on your screen right now is footage from the 1971 Coca-Cola advert, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke," which is a riff on the song "I'd like to teach the world to sing." Now, I would play the song, but YouTube might take this video down then due to copyright, so I have linked it down below if you do want to listen to it. It's only a minute long. However, this advert was a huge marketing success when it came out, but I found it quite interesting because it's the ultimate expression of the post-war liberal worldview in the West. I mean, this advert has all the vital elements of the liberal dream. Of course, we have the hippies front and centre. They represent the post-war era, the end of violence, hierarchy and, quote, hatred. And when we read the first stanza, we see the archetypal hippie, heavenly language. "I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love, grow apple trees and honeybees and snow-white turtle doves." Of course, they're not speaking here of a Christian conception of heaven. It's more of a utopian liberal conception of heaven. That is multiracialism, colourblindness, everybody together in, quote, perfect harmony. So without a religious structure to make sense of our relations with our fellow man, what is it in this liberal conception that holds people together? Well, of course, it's Coca-Cola itself. Coke is the ultimate expression of the American capitalist dream. It's rooted in excess fundamentally. That's because nobody needs Coca-Cola. It's not a natural drink at all. It's a symbol that shows that you're living a high enough a quality life to have things that you want rather than need. And in essence, this forms the basis of the American dream again. It's material wealth and, quote, freedom in that domain, and also the multiculturalism, the liberal social attitudes that go with it on the other side. We see these two dimensions coalesce in the chorus of the Coca-Cola advert. "I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. That's the real thing." The real thing is, of course, a core part of Coca-Cola's branding, and it's ironic because Coca-Cola isn't actually a real drink, but they say it to imply that Coca-Cola is the original drink, number one, but number two, because of the ideology it supposedly holds to. That ideology is American globalist liberalism, and Coca-Cola therefore has become a vector to spread that ideology around the world. It's sort of a form of soft power in many ways. Now, major corporations and ad men using liberal ideology to hawk their products is nothing new. The clip I'm about to show you is from The Century of the Self, a documentary by Adam Curtis, and within it explores how Edward Bernays, he's a nephew of Sigmund Freud, the father of PR, got women to smoke in the USA.
Bernays set out to experiment with the minds of the popular classes. His most dramatic experiment was to persuade women to smoke. At that time, there was a taboo against women smoking, and one of his early clients, George Hill, the president of the American Tobacco Corporation, asked Bernays to find a way of breaking it.
He said, "We're losing half of our market because men have invoked a taboo against women smoking in public. Can you do anything about that?" I said, "Let me think about it." And then I said, "Have I your permission to see a psychoanalyst to find out what cigarettes mean to women?" He said, "What'll it cost?" So I called up Dr. Brill, A.A. Brill, who was a leading psychoanalyst in New York at that time.
How come you didn't call your uncle? Why didn't you call your uncle?
Because he was in Vienna.
A.A. Brill was one of the first psychoanalysts in America. And for a large fee, he told Bernays that cigarettes were a symbol of the penis and of male sexual power. He told Bernays that if he could find a way to connect cigarettes with the idea of challenging male power, then women would smoke, because then they would have their own penises.
Now, it's amazing that this was occurring almost 100 years ago. After all, I've explored many times on this channel the phenomenon of woke and its affiliation with a lot of the corporate powers of the world. I've often thought it's more of a modern thing, but we can see its roots go way, way back.
Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came. And Bernays decided to stage an event there. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
I mean, what's on all American coins? It's liberty. She's holding up the torch. And so the next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world.
It made him realize that it was possible to persuade people to behave irrationally if you link products to their emotional desires and feelings. It meant that irrelevant objects could become powerful emotional symbols of how you wanted to be seen by others.
And it's exactly the same thing going on in the Coca-Cola advert, only they're not focusing so much on young women and female empowerment, they're focusing more on the 1960s counterculture and essentially making that the mainstream culture. This is because the ad men behind Coca-Cola figured out that young people wanted something anti-traditional that spoke to their generation, that spoke to something real and acted like they could fill the gap. And this is entering sometimes what's known as hyperreality. Coca-Cola isn't actually offering any solution. It's not really the real thing. But more importantly, even the liberal ideology is a form of hyperreality. Put simply, something that's hyperreal doesn't have a corresponding reality in the world. Coca-Cola, for instance, is a manufactured product. There's no Coca-Cola flowing from a waterfall. Ditto, when the Coca-Cola singers speak about perfect harmony, there is no recourse to that in human history. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Human history is an absolute bloodbath, and it's been shown time and time again when some of the powers that be try and enforce equality on peoples down from the top, we create forms of hell. This is the case whether it's communists doing it for ideological reasons, or whether it's Coca-Cola doing it to sell products to young people by pretending that they buy into their ideology. This is the same error that John Lennon was making in his famous atheistic anthem, Imagine. It's basically the same as a Coca-Cola song, it just doesn't involve the Coke. What Lennon is promoting is a world without God, without religions, which means without cultures, without borders, without boundaries. He'd be quite happy at the World Economic Forum. I suppose you could say Lennon maybe at least really did mean it deep down and was just a bit naive, whereas Coca-Cola are very much playing a number on young people. However, the core point is the same. They're both promoting an image of total equality in the material world, something that's fundamentally impossible and will create war if you try. In modern man's efforts to create peace on earth, we forget where peace is actually found, and that is in the spirit. That's where true equality and oneness is found. As Jesus stated, on that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. So in essence, much of our modern media and advertising propaganda will riff on many themes such as the spiritual yearning of young people. It'll even riff on our tradition if it wants to make sales. However, it leads us into a world of hyperreality where things stop really meaning anything and everything corrodes all around us despite its glitzy marketing. It's my view that people very much do crave the real thing, but the real thing is not Coca-Cola, it's God. Of course, I speak about these themes a lot on the Substack. Do check it out down below if you're interested. Other than that, let me know your thoughts and do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.